Stars hover between stirring embers, sweet slumber starts to rumble. Words stalling, I start to wonder, why shall I hide my tongue? The words grumble at my teeth that won't even unclench for death. My eyes hover between gaping pupils, the words in a frenzy freeze behind my larynx. I'm tired. A spark lands gently on my lips, which ignites the fuse that previously refused to light. Now lit, the fuse depletes until the words explode from my mouth. I'm tired of thinking about what's killing all these people before the age of 27. Is it because you can't live more than 3 years until 30? Is 30 really so bad it must be avoided at all costs? So much so, when you get to 30, you get a bad back and your memories become lost? But what about the golden years? You're really gonna dig through all this dirt to find you give up before the golden years? Nay, even before the brass and silver years? I'm guessing before the dirt years, the shit years must be from 7 to 17. I mean, look at the school system that molds these kids to the perfect paradigm for the perfectionist parents that try to perfect the imperfections that make them them. And if that wasn't enough, some of those perfectly molded pubescent pigs will prod at the pariahs. It's a pungent practice of plowing poor, powerless people's paths of stairs and ladders. Ladders and stairs that carry them over the hurdles of life. But in a world where people are petty pricks picking on poor, powerless people, there will be the select few who make a promise to themselves to never be picked on by powerless, petty pricks. I pity the petty, powerless pricks for picking on powerful people who made a promise to not be picked apart by pests. I pray for the petty, powerless pricks who prey on the powerful promised people because they punch back. One who promised themselves to never be stepped on again will not break that promise. Promise me this: when you pry misty eyes to see your prey's eyes, remember this: it's all fun and games till someone dies. Their shell a transparent hue from an opaque shade, because when they show their true colors, you will finally notice the blade. But by then it will already be too late, because it's already in your side. So promise me this: to never step on the one who promised themselves they would never be stepped on again, because if you do, don't act surprised when somebody dies. There's one other thing that participates in the prying and prodding of the perspective of a preteen's precious life. And it's a plague where the only meaningful thing in life is the meaning they find on a screen filled with shitposts and memes that teach our generation that they're nothing more than a consumer and peddler of emotional greed. Let this be a warning to those who heed. In a millennium, archaeologists will explore Al Gore's monster and scrounge for scraps that, when scraped together, will spell out a scream for help. Not help from AI, but a screaming plead for the last remaining humans to pry their surgically sutured headsets off of their skulls and use their biologically weakened eyes to see only but a blur of the atrocity that has become of society. A society run on the emotional vulnerability of the masses. Right now, we have it safe, for we live in a dream that has only just begun to crawl. But once it begins to walk and form words, the dream will reveal its true form: a nightmare. That's why we must band together and murder the media we call social, cause there ain't nothing social about it. It's fake-faced double-crossing data suckers that sell your identity that you buy right back. They don't give a shit about your life. You're only a few zeros and ones on some succubus's screen. When they make you think you need to buy what you need to set your life free, they get a pat on the back and a dose of vitamin D. Open your eyes in these trying times. The only thing you're buying is a temporary high. Once the novelty is lost, you'll look for the next best thing. You might think you're getting somewhere buying all these things, but you're only chasing your tail on a screen. A screen, nay a veil. A veil I call hell. A hell that consists of swiping, tapping, liking, hating, buying, testing, texting, dating, rating, posting, baiting, leaking, fighting, baited, groomed, mated, breeded, faded, paid it, bought it, got it, put it in the drawer when it gets outdated, digging deeper to the point where you're misunderstood. Doing everything anyone would. But in the end, most feel faded, stripped, numb, or hated. So you find yourself liking and sharing a post about how much you related to feeling faded, stripped, numb, or hated. So beat the modern day plague and delete your meaning from a screen. Don't base your life off of other people's shitposts and memes. Break free from the shackles of a piece of plastic and glass and treat your life like treasure, because treasure it will be. Cause your life is a priceless thing. Even though a puppeteer has stamped a price tag upon your forehead, you don't need to agree to anyone's best offer, because your life is not to be bartered. In fact, the puppeteer lowers the price if you refuse to follow the Pied Piper, to the point where the price on your head becomes a target in the shape of a zero for rats to point and laugh at, because in their eyes you're worth nothing, less than nothing. After all, who in their right mind wants to buy a worthless, defected puppet? The only thing they will think is, well, you get what you paid for. But something they will never ever get is that the best things in life are free. Besides, who wants any sort of worth if your worth is an invisible societal construct that was simply created to blind everyone who follows? Nevertheless, those who follow will end up in the gallows, in debt to a ghost, with the fate of a sacrificial goat, a slave to the host of the ringleader's banquet in which you're not allowed to eat at. We crawl on the floor and beg for more, but I'll let you in on a secret. We're all fighting for crumbs down here. Unless you decide to climb the petticoat of the ringleader's mother and slither up her fanny to consume the fetus. I doubt we'll ever get out, because she'll forever spawn nepotic rulers who groom each other with their rotten tongues, all the while they rape the innocence of the young ones. Needless to say, they don't like 'em ripe. They'd rather molest a child than make love to their wife, void of any reason but to add a link to the chain that wraps around the world to keep it together. Psych, it's a snake that injects carcinogenic venom into the world's lungs. All the while they play with their little bombs. When they go off, nobody will know. But doesn't it make you question why they run the show? Maybe the solution for us all isn't to escape or stay, but to say fuck it either way, and transcend the superficial rulers of this dying rock in the sky and say goodbye to the power dynamic that is as brittle as ceramic if you take away the structure that provides a breeding ground for the ideology of divide and conquer. Before the only remaining traces of these words get lost in time, I will plant it right here in digital form, accessible until it is censored by the dogs we may even call gods someday. And those words are, we are all part of the same team against the true oppressor. So if you're feeling pressure to be aggressive against a race you label as an aggressor, remember, two wrongs don't make a right or a left, because whether you're left or right doesn't matter, because none of it is correct. So you must truly realize who's blocking your sight, and to be perfectly blunt, the answer is some of you. You and your twisted perspective of a borderline genocidal solution to a problem that doesn't even exist anymore. You know who you are and the true power within and outside of you, on this side of history, even more than I. And I know you would take pride in the fall of a race that you know has done nothing at all in the last 100 years, even though some, a few generations later, are still going strong. But to generalize us with them is like saying every German is a Nazi, even though the majority of Germany has repented for the sins of 2 to 3 generations before. Believe me when I say some of us repent for 4. I suppose it's because we share one thing in common with the monsters that ran the slave trade in residential schools back in the day. And it consists solely on the amount of melanin we possess and display. And for some, it's also a last name. But excuse me while I digress midway and explain my personal side and the reason why I don't regret the actions that my ancestors played. Number 1, I had zero control over what my ancestors did, and it only matters what I am now. And 2, my ancestors provided reindeer for Santa, okay? And I'll tell you with certainty, it won't stop me from raising my fist to the true oppressors of today. Neither should you, no matter what your lineage has done before you were even born. Neither should you feel guilty if your ancestors did wrong. because you are the way you are, because somewhere in between you and a bigot was someone who recognized the hatred and abandoned the pattern. So if anything, take pride in that. But if you are someone who carries the hateful torch to this day, it's not too late to let go before you are the reason someone dyes their shell a transparent hue to an opaque shade, to the point you will see very clearly the hate you point towards them points right back at you. I wanted to also provide a message to those that want to dish out justice for the atrocities your ancestors sustained. So I will quote a wise man named Gandhi. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. I hope everyone who still heeds my pleas hears me say this clear. You are not imitations and copies. You are in full factuality, kings and queens of your destiny. But you very well may be under pressure from your modern day dream. But if your life is a whisper, you must scream. Scream the words that make you feel free, because free speech may not last until you fulfill your dream. If you have to ask what's killing everyone before the age of even 17, maybe the real question should be what's saving them. Because it sure as hell isn't what you claim it to be. Maybe what's saving them is something that fills them with laughter to distract them from the disaster they've been spoon-fed since birth. The bombardment of lies and empty promises to restore their self-worth with words that come from the same mouths of the masses who cry out cancelled when someone has the courage to speak out against the cancer that riddles the world's lungs. Lungs that breathe heavy as it is. Heavy as 8 billion people that cannot find anything to fight but themselves. They call people like us clowns and carnies that pop pills only to be carried out on gurneys. Why? To get high. High enough to taste the sky before it gets eaten by rats that have an insatiable hunger for Swiss cheese. Rats that take life too seriously and death not seriously enough. Because when you fight another brother from another mother in another motherland, one way or another, you only get sent out to die. So why bother to try? Try for a country that hasn't even bared witness to the absolute beauty of your life. So stand tall and rise up. Push down, break the mold, burn the gown and the veil doctrine, because you're not married to the idea society has conjured in its stale cauldron. Breathe in, breathe out, cry, sweat, but never bleed out. If you end up 6 feet underground, rise up, find life, spit doubt, fly far above the storm clouds, cast your ashes to the wind, scream loud, make it heard from the peak of heaven to the pit of hell, and yell, I win! Not because you won the battle, but because you won the war against the oppressors that know nothing more than the ID number that's been branded into the back of your head, and how to waste your precious time on this devastatingly beautiful rock in the sky. Your precious time you can spend to revel the battle scars you earned. Because time heals all wounds, and you made it far enough to see those very wounds become scars. Time recognizes effort because it shows in the eyes. And with those eyes that age like fine wine, appreciate the little things like swaying trees, the smell of the breeze, rip a fart, eat a banana, whatever the fuck it is, find enjoyment in that. And remember that spark when you were a child and hold on to it. Never let go of it. Because what starts as a spark is made to be a flame to set ablaze everything that reminds you of the shit years between 7 to 17, because the toughest times can be used as the best kindling, the fuel ablaze that can be used to warm your heart even on the darkest days. I call it the shit years, not because it's shitty, but because nothing grows from a heap of shit better than a fungi or girl or whatever mushroom you want to be, because the shit don't discriminate. Better yet, the shit doesn't give a shit, unlike other pieces of shit. Nobody is more fun than anyone who's been through the shit and outgrew it, and through growth can joke about the shit they've been through. After all, laughter's the best medicine, and doc, we need an intravenous of that shit stat, because we're sick. Sick and tired of the bullshit. We're doomed to be spoon-fed until we die. But one man's doom can be another man's pleasure, and believe me when I say I take pleasure in laughing in the face of mine own adversities, because I know for certain that they will pass. For what life takes, there is always contrast.